This happened a few months ago. I'm 34, and I've been a paramedic for over a decade. I went to Alaska with my team for a joint emergency preparedness exercise. We were excited to sharpen our skills. The training site was in a remote area, surrounded by thick trees and tall mountains. It felt quiet, too quiet. I thought about how different it was from other places. I've never stopped thinking about it that we set up camp, and as night fell, we gathered around the campfire. The flames flickered, casting strange shadows on the ground. Then I heard something. A distant sound echoing through the trees. At first, I thought it was just wildlife. It sounded like laughter, a child's laughter mixed with cries. I brushed it off. I was sure it was just my imagination. As the days passed, the sounds didn't fade. They came back, sometimes clearer than before. My heart raced when I noticed my teammates looking uneasy. Gear seemed to move by itself, and shadows moved at the edge of my vision. We were here for training, but every drill felt interrupted. Each night, the noises got louder, and I could see fear creeping into my friends' faces. One night, I sat by the fire, feeling cold even with the flames. I heard it again, the laughter, but now it was closer. My stomach dropped. I glanced around the circle. I saw the unspoken worry in their eyes. Maybe I was overthinking it. Isolation can play tricks on the mind. But the uneasiness didn't just linger, it sat heavy on my chest. The next day during a drill, I noticed more shadows flitting through the trees. I knew it had to be real. I decided to ask around, but some team members spoke in whispers about the land's history. They talked about past tragedies and people who vanished, stories nobody could confirm. I started to feel like the land was alive and watching us. I was beginning to doubt my own experiences. On our final night, we sat together around the fire. The laughter was louder now. I felt the sweat forming on my forehead. I tried to focus on practicing skills, but the sound distracted me. I turned, trying to find the source, but there was nothing but darkness. One of my teammates said, "Did you hear that?" Just then I heard it again, louder. I felt my heart freeze. Was someone else out there? I questioned everything. Did I imagine the sounds? Was I losing it? As we packed up to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling that darkness had watched us, waited for us. That I never understood what really happened, and I still don't know if I want to. No one talked about it afterward. What was truly out there? The questions still linger, and so does the unease. The drive back from Alaska was tense. I could feel the weight of my teammates' silence, a heavy blanket over our small van. We were all lost in our thoughts, replaying those nights in the woods. It wasn't just me feeling it. The air felt thick with unspoken fears, and I was as eager as the others to get home, but I couldn't shake the memories. The laughter, the shadows, they were etched in my mind. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe there were explanations: wild animals, fatigue playing tricks, or even local folklore spiraling out of control. Still, a part of me whispered that it was something bigger than all of us. That we made a pit stop halfway, and while my friends grabbed snacks, I took a moment to collect myself. I stepped outside, inhaling the crisp air. Everything felt normal, yet I knew something inside me had changed. The dark corners of my mind whispered about the land, about what we had lived through. As I wandered around, I spotted something on the ground near a tree line. I crept toward it. It was a small child's toy, a faded plastic dinosaur half buried in the dirt. My stomach twisted. Why was this here? I plucked it from the ground, my thoughts racing. What could it mean? "Hey, you coming or what?" One of my teammates called out, breaking my focus. I shoved the toy in my pocket, hiding it like it was too strange to show. I hurried back to the van, heart pounding. The rest of the drive was more of the same silence. As we approached home, I decided to reach out to a few friends in the search and rescue community. Maybe they'd encountered something similar. Maybe it was normal for teams to have odd experiences in remote settings. I needed answers that I spent the next couple of days buried in phone calls and emails. Most of the responses were vague. Some hinted at caution in those woods, but others acted as if I'd imagined everything. I started to second-guess myself. Was I chasing shadows? Then, I found an old article, buried in the archives of a local paper. It mentioned a missing persons case from decades ago, children who had vanished while playing near the very area we trained in. My heart dropped. As I read the details, a chill ran through me. The ages of the children matched the laughter I had heard. That night, I pulled out the dinosaur toy. Holding it in the dim light, I felt a wave of dread wash over me. What if those sounds weren't just echoes of the past? What if they were connected to something that still lingered in those woods? I looked out my window, feeling the shadows creeping around my home. I could almost hear the laughter again, teasing me from the depths of the darkness. It was a simple toy, yet it felt like a piece of a much bigger puzzle. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from one of my teammates. "We need to talk. Meet me," it read, and a shiver ran down my spine. I hurried to reply, my heart racing. I had to know what they uncovered. But as I stared out into the dark, a thought struck me, a sickening suspicion that whatever we had disturbed in those woods wasn't done with us yet. I arrived at the coffee shop, my pulse quickening as I spotted my teammate, Jenna, seated at a corner table. She was stirring her drink nervously, her eyes darting around. I slid into the seat across from her, my stomach twisting with unease. "Did you get my text?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, still clutching the dinosaur toy in my pocket, the hard edges pressing against my thigh. "What is going on? Did you find something?" Jenna took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "I talked to a few other teams. Some have reported disturbances. And not just from our area." "Disturbances?" I asked, leaning closer. "What do you mean?" She glanced around again, lowering her voice. "Sounds. Laughter. Like kids playing, only there are no children anywhere nearby. A few said they saw figures, but not close enough to make out details. Just shadows in the trees." My chest felt tight as I tried to process her words. "What did they think it was?" "They don't know," she said, glancing back at the door. "Some said it might be a trick of the light, but others are worried. They think it could be something tied to those missing kids." The more I dug, the more I felt like I was uncovering something nobody wanted to talk about. I pulled the dinosaur toy from my pocket, placing it on the table between us. "I found this. Near where we were training. It makes sense now, doesn't it?" Jenna stared at it, her face draining of color. "Did you ever think it was maybe connected?" "I'm not sure," I replied, my voice shaking. But the laughter we heard felt too real. Too close. I can't shake it. Just then, the coffee shop door swung open, and a gust of wind rushed inside, bringing with it a chill that felt wrong. I turned to look, seeing a figure briefly cross the threshold, a child, dressed in pale pajamas, fleeting like an errant shadow. My heart skipped. Was I seeing things? "Did you see that?" I whispered, only to find Jenna's eyes fixed on the table, still lost in thought. "Jenna?" I shook her slightly, and she blinked back to reality. "What?" she said, her voice rising in pitch. "I thought I saw a kid. Just now." She looked over her shoulder, then back at me. "Maybe it's just our minds playing tricks. It's been a long road back." "No, this was different," I insisted, a cold sweat forming on my brow. It felt real. Jenna's gaze hardened, her voice dropping. "We should go back. Tonight." "Back?" I echoed, a swell of fear creeping into my chest. "You really think that's a good idea?" "Think about it. We need to know what's happening," she said urgently. "If there are connections to those kids, we need to figure it out. We can't let it go." I hesitated. Something in her eyes told me she believed it was essential. But the idea of returning to those woods sent a jolt of dread through me. Then, without warning, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from the group chat. "You guys need to get out of there. I'm not sure what it is, but it's coming for you." I froze. My mind raced as I exchanged glances with Jenna, both of us suddenly aware that whatever had grabbed our attention had no intention of letting go. "Who sent that?" Jenna asked, her voice breaking under the weight of tension. I don't know," I stammered, my heart pounding in rhythm to the growing unease. "But we need to leave. Now." Just as we stood to make our exit, the lights flickered overhead. The shop seemed to darken for a moment, and for the briefest instant, something whispered my name from the shadows. I stumbled back, and that feeling of being watched seeped into every pore. What had we stepped into? And worse, what awaited us when we returned to those woods? The door swung shut behind us with a finality that felt like a warning. We stepped into the darkening evening, the chill in the air wrapping around us like a shroud. I looked over at Jenna, her face pale, and my stomach sank. "Do you really think we should do this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The streets were quieter than they should have been, the usual hum of late-night life swallowed by an uneasy stillness. She nodded, determination etched on her features. "We have to. If there is something out there we can't ignore it." With each step toward the woods, I felt weightier, as if invisible hands were tugging at me, urging me to turn back. My thoughts raced through the stories I'd heard, tales of kids playing, laughter echoing in the trees, and then the dark silence that followed. The dinosaur toy felt heavy in my pocket, a reminder that some pieces of the puzzle were already in place. When we reached the edge of the trees, an overwhelming darkness loomed. The last vestiges of daylight faded quickly, and the forest felt alive, whispering secrets I didn't want to uncover. Jenna produced her flashlight, the beam cutting through the blackness like a knife. "Stay close," she instructed, her eyes scanning the surroundings. As we stepped deeper into the woods, the air turned thick, and my skin prickled. A faint sound threaded through the trees, a fleeting giggle that seemed to bounce off the bark. I froze, a chill creeping down my spine. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Yeah," she said, her face tense. "It sounded like kids." I finished her thought. The memory of the laughter echoed in my mind, making the hair on the back of my neck stand. We pushed ahead, moving cautiously. The shadows shifted around us, and every rustle seemed amplified. Then, the light from Jenna's flashlight caught something, a figure darting between the trees. "Did you see it?" I whispered, heart racing. "Stop. Don't move." She hissed, her voice filled with urgency. I held my breath, straining to see. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of something pale, like fabric flapping in the wind. But when I turned to look, it vanished, swallowed by the darkness. That's when I saw it. A flash of color, bright red against the muted earth tones of the forest floor. A ball rolling toward us, its surface glinting in the flashlight's beam. "Where did that come from?" I asked, voice barely more than a whisper. "Just keep moving," Jenna replied, her voice steady, but I could hear the fear lingering beneath. We walked around the ball cautiously, and I shivered as I felt the temperature drop even more. "Wait," Jenna said, raising the flashlight higher. "Do you see that over there?" I squinted into the shadows, heart pounding. A cluster of trees stood apart, their branches forming what looked like an arch, and beyond it, there was a faint glow. "Maybe we should check it out," I suggested, but even as I said it, my instinct screamed against it. Jenna hesitated, then nodded slowly. As we approached, the giggling returned, floating through the air like a haunting lullaby. The laughter was mingled with whispers, words I couldn't quite make out. "Something is really wrong," I breathed, backing up a step. Then we both heard it, a low, rasping sound coming from behind the arch. It was followed by a sigh that seemed to pull at the very essence of the night. Panic surged within me, and I reached for Jenna's arm. Before I could speak, I sensed a presence, something lurking just beyond our vision. "Get back!" Jenna shouted, but it was too late. The darkness shifted again, and suddenly, we weren't alone anymore. I felt my breath catch in my throat, fear clawing its way up as I searched for an escape. The laughter became shrill, and everything around us began to swirl into chaos. "Run!" I screamed, but the words hardly left my mouth before the forest erupted in sound, drowning out our voices. Then everything went dark. I stumbled forward, disoriented, gasping for breath in the suffocating darkness. My heart raced as I blindly reached out, only to find Jenna's arm. We were still together, but the night felt like a living thing, pressing in around us. "Jenna? Are you okay?" My voice was barely a whisper, the panic rising in my chest. "Let us move," she urged, her grip tightening on my arm. "We have to get out of here." But where? Every direction seemed the same in this oppressive night. I could hear the rustles in the underbrush, the whispers that taunted from the shadows. Jenna turned on the flashlight again, and the beam flickered to life, illuminating twisted roots and low-hanging branches, but it felt more a source of dread than comfort. "Did you see that?" she breathed, pointing into the thicket ahead that I squinted, heart pounding as I tried to focus. What I first thought was a trick of the light solidified into something strange, a pair of reflective eyes glaring back at us from behind the foliage. Instinct kicked in, and I grabbed Jenna's hand, ready to turn and bolt, but then the laughter returned clearer, closer. It wasn't childlike or playful anymore. It twisted into something mocking, a malicious sound that sent a shiver up my spine. "Stay quiet," Jenna hissed, inching forward. The flashlight beam wavered, revealing more shapes, distant figures moving just beyond the trees. "We shouldn't be here," I muttered, glancing back over my shoulder. "We should have listened to the stories." Before Jenna could reply, a loud crack echoed through the woods, like a branch snapping underfoot, followed by a low growl. "What was that?" I gasped, eyes widened in terror. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice now barely above a whisper. "But we can't stick around to find out." We turned to run, but the laughter rose again, enveloping us like a blanket, and it felt as though the very trees were closing in. I felt branches snagging at my clothes, pulling me back as dread clawed at my insides. "Move!" Jenna insisted, pulling me along, but I stumbled, caught off guard by a sudden shift in the ground. I fell to one knee, panic spiraling. That's when I noticed the ball again, the red sphere, now just a few feet away. It seemed so innocent, yet here, amid the chaos, it felt like a sinister joke. I caught the glint of something metallic beside it, a small, forgotten toy in the underbrush. "Wait," I said, forcing myself to focus. "What's that?" Jenna hesitated, glancing back. "We don't have time for this." But I was already reaching for the toy, my fingers brushing against a jagged edge. I pulled it out, revealing a rusted key. "What? Why is this here?" I wondered aloud, heart racing. The chilling laughter faded just a moment, only to return, louder and more frantic. Then I looked up. The shadows thickened as the shapes approached, faces taking form, pale, almost transparent. They moved with a grace that seemed unnatural, their laughter now a crescendo of sinister delight. "Run!" Jenna yelled, dragging me to my feet. We sprinted through the trees, the sound of pounding footsteps following us, a primal instinct telling us we might not escape. The forest shifted, and the archway with its faint glow loomed up ahead. "Where are we going?" I shouted, too terrified to think straight. "To the light," she cried, pushing forward. The figures melted into the darkness behind us, but the laughter echoed all around that we burst through the trees, the clearing opened up, and I felt a rush of hope until a chilling realization struck. The glow wasn't from safety. It was red, a low, pulsing light that flickered ominously in the suddenly quiet night. "What is that?" I asked breathlessly, dread pooling in my stomach. Then, it started to pulse faster, and the laughter swelled again, a whirlwind of sound that left no room for thought. In the terrifying stillness, I understood we had stumbled onto something far worse than we anticipated. My heart raced what was waiting for us in the clearing. We had to find out, but now the stakes felt impossibly high. Jenna and I stood at the edge of the clearing, the red light pulsing in front of us like a heartbeat. I wanted to scream, to cry out for help, but my voice felt trapped in my throat. The laughter faded, but that didn't mean we were alone. A new sound filled the air, a low, throbbing hum that vibrated in my bones. "What do we do now?" I asked, panic creeping back. I could feel the rusted key pressing against my palm, a strange weight that felt out of place in this chaos. Jenna stepped forward, eyes wide as she studied the source of the light. "I think it's something or someone. We have to get closer." I hesitated. "What if it's a trap?" "We need answers," she insisted, her voice steady. I admired her bravery, but it didn't wash away my fear. We crept toward the glow, each step dragging me deeper into dread. The air felt electric, thick with tension, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. Just beyond the light, shadowy forms flickered in and out, barely visible but unmistakably there. They seemed to pulse in time with the red light. Suddenly, the humming escalated, accompanied by a rush of wind that sent chills down my spine. The light brightened, casting long shadows across the ground. I glanced back, half expecting to see the figures we had fled from, but the darkness held its secrets close. Jenna reached for my hand, and I took it, needing that connection. Together, we moved closer. The air crackled as a figure emerged from the light, tall and elongated, with features almost human, yet undeniably wrong. Its eyes glowed with that same red intensity, and it opened its mouth to speak, or was it to laugh? I couldn't move. My feet felt rooted to the spot. Was this what had been stalking us in the woods? "Do you remember the old stories about the lost ones?" Jenna murmured, fear dripping from her words. "They say they lure you in only to take you." The creature tilted its head, as if considering us. Its mouth moved, forming words I couldn't understand, and the humming stopped. A silence fell, heavy and unsettling. "Jenna," I whispered, the absurdity of even speaking almost suffocating. This wasn't a fairy tale, this was real and terrifying. Just then, the key in my hand seemed to vibrate, and a sudden thought struck me. The key. What if it opens something? "What do you mean?" Jenna replied, glancing between the key and the creature that loomed before us. "I don't know, but it might be our only chance to escape." I hesitated. "I think we have to show it the key." As soon as the thought left my lips, the creature's eyes flashed, reflecting a mixture of curiosity and perhaps recognition. My heart pounded as I stepped forward, holding out the key. But before I could say anything else, another sound erupted from the woods behind us, a sharp crack like thunder, a warning. The pulsating glow shifted, revealing more figures emerging from the shadows. "Run!" Jenna shouted. The urgency snapped my trance, and we bolted back toward the trees. The laughter resumed, joined now by a chorus of those strange voices, all of it echoing through my head. What had we unknowingly stumbled into? As we ran, a thought nagged at me: what if this key was the only thing that could save us? But I didn't have time to think. The shadows were closing in again, and we had no idea what lay ahead in the forest. All we had was the hope of escape if only we could find where the key belonged. The trees whipped by as we ran, their branches clawing at us like skeletal hands. I could hear Jenna's breath, quick and frantic, matching my own. The laughter faded behind us, but the echoes still ricocheted in my mind. Fear clawed at me. Would we make it out? We stumbled deeper into the woods, where the light was replaced by a shroud of darkness. My eyes tried to adjust, but the shadows danced, playing tricks on me. It felt like we were running in circles. Just as I started to doubt our direction, Jenna stopped abruptly, pulling me with her. "What is it?" I gasped, glancing back. The shadows shifted, and my pulse quickened again. There. Jenna pointed. Ahead, barely visible through a low haze, was a faint glimmer, a portal of some sort. What if it's another trap? I warned, the panic rising again. It's our only shot. We need to go. Jenna's voice was fierce, filled with determination. Reluctantly, I nodded, and we pressed on toward the shimmer. The noise behind us grew louder, a cacophony of unnatural sounds that made my skin crawl. I felt the weight of the key in my pocket, reminding me of our only potential salvation. When we reached the luminous opening, I could feel the electricity in the air. It crackled around us, almost alive. What is it? I whispered, mesmerized by its allure. I think it might lead us somewhere safe. Jenna looked at me, her face pale but resolute. We have to take the risk. Together. Always. I swallowed hard, our pact a thin thread keeping my fear at bay. We stepped closer, toes touching the edge of the light. Suddenly, a piercing shriek cut through the night. It came from within the woods, and it wasn't just laughter anymore. Go. Jenna pulled me through, and we stumbled into the glow. It enveloped us, pulling at our forms like a tidal wave. The last thing I saw before losing my footing was the figures from the woods, their glowing eyes now fixed on us with an intensity that froze my blood. Then everything went dark. That I hit the ground with a thud, the air knocked from my lungs. Blinking against the sudden absence of light, I felt Jenna's hand slip from mine. Panic coursed through me. Jenna! I cried out, scrambling to my feet. Over here. She was just a few feet away, her silhouette barely visible against the faint backdrop of light now surrounding us. What happened? My heart pounded, the echoes of the voices still reverberating in my mind. I think we made it. Jenna replied, her voice a mix of hope and disbelief. But where are we? I turned, trying to assess our surroundings. We were in a bizarre expanse, a field of shimmering light floating like a veil around us. Above, the sky flickered, not quite filled with stars but with something else entirely. I could feel the key pulsing against my chest again, as if it had a life of its own. Do you think it's safe? I asked, worry creeping back. Then, something caught my eye. Something shifting in the distance. That's when I saw it, I said slowly, pointing toward the horizon. Shadows were gathering again, but this time, they were different, more defined, less ethereal. And they were moving towards us. Not again, Jenna whispered, her fear sharpening as the figures loomed closer. We need to find out what this place is, and fast. I gripped the key tighter, fear morphing into resolve. We had no choice but to confront whatever was coming for us. The figures became clearer as they approached, a swarm of dark shapes moving with an unsettling purpose. I could make out features now, elongated limbs, sharp faces, hollow eyes. I instinctively edged closer to Jenna, feeling her warmth beside me as a glimmer of reassurance. Do you think they can see us? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, Jenna replied, squinting into the eerie light. But we can't just stand here. The shadows were closer now, flowing like smoke and yet undeniably solid. I remembered the key in my pocket, and I pulled it out, holding it tightly in my palm. There was something about it that gave me a sense of control, a glimmer of power in a situation spiraling out of hand. What are you doing? Jenna asked, alarm flashing in her eyes as she noticed my grip. I'm not sure. But maybe it's meant to unlock something or protect us. I didn't even believe my own words, but desperation often births hope. Just then, a loud crack echoed behind us, startling me. I turned to see that the originally shimmering veil of light was beginning to ripple and distort. It felt like our way in was about to close off. Jenna, we need to move. Now. I grabbed her hand, but she hesitated. What about that? She pointed back at the dark shapes that were now almost upon us. Their features twisted in the flickering light, creating an impression of both danger and strange melancholy. I think they're trying to communicate, I realized, the instinct to run battling with a growing curiosity. "What do you mean?" Jenna asked, her voice trembling slightly. Before I could answer, the nearest figure stepped closer, its shadowy form expanding. As it moved, my heart raced. Were we ready for another encounter? I felt the key buzz in my hand, and I shot a glance at Jenna. "I'll distract them," I whispered, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Are you crazy?" She replied sharply, her eyes wide. "Just trust me," I said, stepping forward. An unearthly sound emanated from the figure, a mix of sorrow and urgency that reverberated around us. I froze, trying to decipher it. It was like a song made from whispers and cries, memory and longing. "Can you hear it?" I asked Jenna, who stepped up beside me, entranced. "It sounds sad," she murmured, her fear momentarily replaced by intrigue. The tangible weight of the key still thrummed in my palm, now feeling warm. I instinctively raised it, unclear of what to do but hoping for a reaction. As I did, the sound shifted, morphing into a melody that pulsed in rhythm with the key. "Look!" Jenna pointed, eyes wide. "I think they want us to follow." I scanned the approaching figures, each one seeming more alive with each note. Taking a risk, I nodded. "Let us see where this leads." Gripping the key tightly, we stepped forward together, drawn into the strange melody echoing around us. As we moved deeper into the light, I felt a surge of hope, but I couldn't shake the dread that this was just the beginning. Then everything went cold, the warmth slipping away, and I heard that haunting shriek again. But this time, it was coming from inside me. "Stay close!" I shouted, fear creeping back as I felt the pull of the darkness returning. Whatever lay ahead, I knew we were entering a battle between light and shadow. And I wasn't sure which side would win. As we moved into the swirling light, the dark figures began to shift and dance around us. I could feel Jenna's hand squeezing mine, the warmth of our connection bringing me a fleeting comfort. The melody pulsated louder, pushing us towards the heart of the gathering, an attraction I couldn't resist. "Do you see that?" Jenna said, pointing to a figure that stood taller than the rest. It seemed to be emanating a glow, shimmering as if it was woven from beams of light breaking through clouds. My breath caught. This shape felt different, less hostile, almost protective. Before I could respond, the melody reached a fever pitch, resonating through me and pulling at my chest. I felt alive, but also terrified. The shapes around us continued to swirl, and I was conscious of their eyes hollow yet somehow full of emotion. "They want something from us," I said, half to myself. The realization flooded me with a sense of urgency. "But what?" Jenna's eyes darted around, her anxiety returning. "What if they want the key?" I glanced down at the object in my hand. It didn't look like much, just an old, tarnished piece of metal, but it felt significant, like it was meant for something beyond our understanding. At that moment, the taller figure stepped closer, stretching its elongated arm, revealing a palm that was not menacing but inviting. "Do you think we should?" I asked, uncertainty gripping me. But Jenna's expression shifted. There was a calmness about her now that worried me. "I think we have to. It feels right." Tentatively, I held out the key. As soon as it broke the threshold of the figure's palm, the music shifted again, transforming into a rich, resonating sound that enveloped us like a warm embrace. I couldn't help but close my eyes, drowning in the melody. Suddenly, everything changed. A gust of wind blasted through, scattering the dark figures into wisps of shadow. The towering figure held its ground, though, its glow intensifying. And then it spoke, not with words, but by sending pulses of light and sound directly into my mind that I gasped, my heart racing. It filled me with images, a place lost to time, memories from an era I'd never known, and a promise of something I could barely grasp. I glanced at Jenna. "Do you see this?" She nodded, eyes wide. "It's beautiful, but it's overwhelming." Just then, a crack echoed through the air, slicing through the melody. The shimmering light flickered violently. The taller figure seemed to wobble, as if its form was caught between existence and oblivion. My stomach dropped. "Something's wrong," Jenna shouted, panic creeping back in. "What do we do?" As she spoke, the melody shifted again, now growing distant, fading fast. It was like an echo slipping through my fingers. I turned to the fading figures, their faces morphing into something darker, more urgent. They were pleading. "Wait!" I called out, feeling the key pulse violently in my grasp. The shadows paused, teetering as if they awaited my next move. I didn't know what was about to happen, but I felt the stakes rising. "Jenna! We need to," but before I could finish, another loud crack split the air, and the world around us began to collapse inward. I had no idea what awaited us in the darkness that was closing in. All I knew was that this was not just a journey into the unknown, it was a race against time to find the truth before it vanished forever. The air around us grew thick with an icy sensation, a stark contrast to the warmth that had enveloped us moments ago. Shadows swirled menacingly, razor-edged laughter echoing from all directions. I tightened my grip on the key as it pulsed with a desperate energy, almost alive in my hand. "We need to do something," I shouted over the worsening sounds, dreading the encroaching darkness. "What? What is happening?" Jenna's voice wavered, anxiety creeping into her tone. The darkness was not just pursuing us, it was alive, eager to snuff out any light that flickered, and we stood as the last sparks. "Those figures, they need us to act," I said, my mind racing. The echo of their pleading visions lingered, reminding me of something vital. As the world twisted and the shadows converged, desperation clawed at my insides. The key. Maybe it opens something that can help us break free. Jenna's eyes widened. "But what? We don't even know what it's for." "I don't know, but it has to be worth a try." I felt time slipping away, the pulsing light around us dimming. I took a step forward toward the towering figure, its glow now flickering like a weary flame. This could last our only chance. As I approached, the darkness reached out like eager fingers, seeking to pull me back. Panic surged within me as the figures shifted, forming a wall of shadow. "Do you think they'll let us get close enough?" My voice trembled. "I think they have to," Jenna said, fear edging her tone. "They need us just as much as we need them." With that conviction driving me, I moved closer until I was right before the illuminated figure. The shadows writhed in protest, but I could feel its presence, almost urging me forward, as if it recognized the power of the key. I thrust it toward the creature's outstretched palm with a surge of belief. "Take it," I shouted, willing it to understand my urgency. As soon as the key touched the figure's palm, a shock wave of energy blasted through me. The air crackled as light exploded forth, flooding the clearing with brilliant luminescence. I closed my eyes against the brilliance, letting it wash away the suffocating darkness. Screams of anguish and anger erupted, mingling with a new sound, a harmony that resonated with hope. When I finally dared to open my eyes, the shadows had receded, a barrier now formed around us as they writhed in agitation and confusion. The tall figure pulsed with radiant energy, urging us to step into its light. "Quick!" Jenna urged, and I grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the glowing figure. "Now what?" Jenna shouted, her voice strained as we felt the shadows gnawing at our edges. The luminous being did not answer with words, instead, it flickered, projecting a breathtaking vision, a glimmering pathway. "That must be our way out." I pointed, heart racing as the pulsing of the key guided my actions. Together we plunged towards it, the world around us morphing and dissolving. The figures behind us shrieked in fading desperation as we rushed forward. In an instant, we broke through the threshold of light. A forceful wind whipped around us, tossing us as if we were leaves. And then silence. We collided against soft earth, feeling the warmth return, embracing us like a blanket pulled snugly around our shoulders. I lay there for a moment, breathless, blinking at the stars above. Had we made it? I turned to Jenna, who lay beside me, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Did we really just escape? I think so. Her voice wavered, astonished. She pulled herself upright, scanning our surroundings. But where are we? I pushed myself onto my knees. The clearing was different, a serene glade, untouched by shadows, bathed in a soft, ethereal glow, almost dreamlike. It was peaceful. But doubt gnawed at me. I don't know, but it feels safer. Yet as we took in the beauty, questions poured in like ink spilling from a broken pen. What had we entered? What became of those dark figures? Were we forever altered by this encounter? The nagging thought lingered, maybe they weren't just lost souls, perhaps they remained tethered to this realm. In search of resolution. We can't stay here, Jenna whispered, glancing back at the faint shimmer we had emerged from. I know, I replied, my heart heavy. I longed for closure but also knew we had barely scratched the surface of a deeper mystery. But we have to keep moving. With one last look behind us, I grasped Jenna's hand, steeling myself against the unknown. Together, we stepped into the woods, a world of uncertainty, repeating the promises of memories both haunting and beautiful. The laughter echoed softly behind us, as fragile as a breeze stirring leaves, lingering but no longer threatening. The adventure had transformed, the path ahead still winding through the unfathomable. And so we walked on, unsure of what lay ahead but determined to find our footing in a reality forever tinged with the absence of answers.